Hi there, it's Misty. Welcome to another card video on my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to share the card I made for the Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge. The theme this week is make your own background, and the design team and I are featuring Concord and 9th products. Concord and 9th makes some really great stamps that make it super easy to create your own background. I'm going to use the triangle turnabout stamp, and what I'm showing you here is I created a little swatch because I knew I wanted to use embossing powders as well as some inks, and so I thought of what embossing powders I had that I thought would go good with particular inks, and I just wanted to see them side by side, so I swatched out a few different colors so that it would make it easier to choose what 4 colors I wanted to put together. So I chose 2 embossing powders and 2 inks. And with the turnabout stamp, you turn it 4 times, or I guess I should say that you can turn it 4 times. You could stamp it once and be done. You can stamp it twice, and you could do it 3 or 4 times. So I chose to do it all 4 times. I'm going to turn it 4 different times, and each time you turn it, obviously the image is going to be in a different place. So it's really cool how this comes together. Whoever creates these I just think they're brilliant because I just love these turnabout stamps. If you've never used one of the turnabout stamps before, I highly suggest you go to the Concord and 9th, either their website or their YouTube channel, because they have a really great video that shows you exactly how to do it. It's not complicated at all. There is some direction on how to use it. So look how beautiful this embossing powder is. It's called Iridescent Sparkle. I love how sparkly it is, but I forgot to write down who makes this embossing powder. I wrote down the name, I just didn't write down who makes it. So that's going to be my first stamp is using this Iridescent Sparkle. If you go to the Concord and 9th video, it tells you that you need to have a jig, which is what it's on. It's just some cardboard that I cut, and then you had to find the center point with a ruler. It's really easy, but that's what it's on. And then you keep it on this throughout the whole stamping process. So like I said, if you only stamp it once, then you could take it off after the first stamp, but I did it all 4 times. And I learned from Jennifer McGuire's video, it's easier to number it, so that's what I just did. So that way when you take it off and you heat set it, if you're using embossing powders, it just makes it so much easier to remember which way was in there first. So I did it the first time, so this is my second stamp, and each time I did it, I stamped the Versamark twice just because I wanted to make sure I had a good coverage. And then the second embossing powder I'm using is, let me grab it right here. It's called, it's by Wow, and it's called Cloud 9. And this is another really pretty embossing powder. This one had more silver to it. It's, which I thought went perfect with the colors. So it was, it shows up, has silver, and then it has the, sparkle from the glitter in it. And the iridescent sparkle one was basically, it's the same, it just shows up as the same color as the cardstock. It just adds some, iridescent glitter to it. They're both really pretty. But just these 2 alone, see, now I could have stopped at just this and had this as my background. So I'm quickly heat setting it here, or melting it. And then I'm going to make sure I pay attention to my numbering, and I'm going to turn it to the 3rd stamp, or 3rd side. So each time you just got to make sure you clean the stamp really well, so the color doesn't transfer where you don't want it to. And I'm going to keep stamping each layer twice just to make sure I get nice even coverage. My jig was starting to warp a little bit because I kept hitting it with my heat gun, but it was really easy to just kind of flex back into shape. And they recommend you use a temporary adhesive to tape it down, but when I used the temporary adhesive, and as soon as I hit it with my heat gun, it pretty much almost came off, so I had to hold it in place. Then I started using it's a dot liner adhesive. It's made by Kokuo, or Kokuyo, Kokyo. And it's just like the stamp runner. Well, that's why it's called the dot liner. It has the little dots in it. And it's a temporary adhesive at first, and then the longer it sits, the more permanent it becomes. So it was still pretty easy to remove off the jig because it wasn't on there for very long. But yeah, I didn't have much luck with the temporary adhesive. But look how beautiful that is. I absolutely love how this turned out. I love it. It's so pretty. So that was AUDREY blue and Slate are the two ink colors that I used, and they're both by Simon Says Stamp. So on to the Slate cardstock, I went ahead and cut out this word kind, and this die is called Kind Card Frame Add-on Die, which is also by Concord and 9th. And I don't have the frame that this coordinates with, but it's really easy just to cut off those edges right there. It coordinates with a frame die, and then the two ends that I cut off attach to the frame. So this is like the add-on die for that, but that's why I say it's really easy to just cut off those edges right there and make it its own die. I just can't get over how easy these stamps make it to create your own background. So I'm using the stamp set called KINDHEARTED, also by Concord and 9th, for the rest of my sentiment. And here's where I decided to put the white layer in front of the gray layer for the word kind, because it just made it stand out a little bit more. And my sentiment is going to say, kind people are my kind of people. There's really a lot of options on the stamp set. There were a lot to choose from, but I liked this one. I had an experience recently where somebody wasn't very nice, so I just thought this was fitting because I just wish there was more kind people out there. All right, so I'm going to heat emboss this with white embossing powder. And you're going to see when I cut it that I ended up redoing this part because once I heat set it, I noticed it looked like a big scratch right across the sentiment. I had ran this piece through my die cutting machine, and well, I need new plates for it, so there's all kind of, deep gouges in it. So when I ran it through my Big Shot, it kind of embossed a big scratch across it. And it was bugging me, so I just redid it really quick. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use a microfiber cloth to wipe off the extra anti-static powder. And then this is where I realized that deep scratch was going right across my sentiment. So I redid it. So like I said in my last video, I really like using this Fiskars paper trimmer for sentiments like this that I cut little strips, because that wire guide makes it really easy to cut a straight line. And I'm horrible at cutting straight lines on my sentiments, but the wire guide makes it really easy. Well, it's not the line that's not straight. It's just my sentiment will usually have a slope to it. Unless I use that paper trimmer. I'm not very good at these fishtails either, so I don't know why I did it, but this one didn't turn out so bad, but usually they're asymmetrical in the worst kind of way. I don't know if there's a trick to it. I mean, I thought you just find the center, you make a little snip, and then you cut from one corner to the top of your little snip. But whenever I do it, I don't know, it looks funky. So to try to make that top layer of the kind stand out a little bit more, I went ahead and added a couple more layers to it. And I'm just using the Nuvo DELUXE adhesive in my syringe to glue them together. It's a nice strong adhesive. I was going to cover it in like the Spectrum Noir glitter pen, but I don't know, it seemed like there's just enough glitter on it, so I didn't do it on the sentiment, which was hard for me to do because I'm obsessed with glitter and sparkle and all that good stuff on my cards. All right, so I'm just going to add the gray layer, kind of offset from the white ones. I love how this looks. It's not quite a shadow dye, but it's the closest thing to it. I think that adding the 3 layers of the white really helped it stand up and kind of pop out a little bit more. And there's some glue that seeped out, so I was just trying to wipe some of it off. And I'm gonna put it all down on my card. I went ahead and cut the card panel with the triangles on it. I cut it down to a 4 by 5 1/4. And then the slate gray is the A2 size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And as I was trying to glue this down, I realized I probably should have glued down my card front first, because I was a little worried that I wasn't going to get it straight or I wasn't going to get it centered, but it worked out. But I should have glued the card front down first before putting that down. And then I just put my acrylic block on it for a minute while the glue was drying. And then I decided to add some foam adhesive on the back of this part of the sentiment. And it was just a little bit too wide, so I'm just going to cut off a really thin strip of it. And I'll save that thin strip because there's times when I need foam tape that is that thin. So I just put it back on the roll. So I was trying to line it up. It was kind of easy with the triangles to keep it in a straight line, but I still eyeballed it just in case. And then I was going to just glue this down, and then before I stuck it down, I thought, you know, maybe I should add some craft foam to it. So that's what I did, just to give it a little bit more dimension. I mean, as busy as the background is, there's really not much else to it, so I didn't do any embellishments. I just thought that the background was enough. Didn't need to add anything else to it. But this is subtle enough where, you know, it just gives a little bit more dimension. I'm using I think it was a 1/4 inch score tape on the craft foam. And then I'm going to put it on a top folding card base. And I actually reached for my Tombow Mono liquid glue to put my card front on my card base, which I don't really use this glue too often anymore. I used to use it all the time. I'm not sure why I don't use it anymore, but my ATG was out of tape, so I just reached for the liquid glue. And that's it. That's my card for this week. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click on that subscribe button, and don't forget to click on the little bell icon so YouTube can notify you when I post a new video. And while you're at it, click on the like button. Let me know you liked my video. Head over to my blog. I'll have more pictures, more info over there, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.